Friday update, 49ers, Seahawks. I ran into a gold mine yesterday at Levi's Stadium. They're making us clean out our desks at the media room because the Super Bowl is coming and the regular season is about to end. So this has been the NFL's plan for a while. They're going to use the media room at Levi's to prep for that Super Bowl. So we had to dig through all of the stuff that had accumulated from over the course of the past several years. And I actually ran into something really, really good. Post-game quotes from 2019. Have a look at this right at my desk. CenturyLink Field, it's not even called that anymore. It's Lumen Field now. But December 29th, about 6 years ago, we celebrated the 6-year anniversary just a few days ago. This is the last time that the 49ers and the Seahawks played with these kind of stakes. It was for the 1 seed. Now, back in 2019, the 49ers would have dropped to the 5. I'm not sure where the Seahawks ended up dropping. I think they ended up being the 5. It might have been the 6, but obviously the highest that you can be if you lose this game is the 5 seed, because the 4 division winners get the top 4 seeds. Anyway, that one came down to Dre Greenlaw stopping Jacob Hollister at the goal line, and Russell Wilson, still with the Seahawks, still was doing amazing things with Seattle back then. I think most 49ers fans had a very sick feeling in their stomachs as Russell Wilson and Seattle drove down the field, trailing by 5 points, and the clock bled. And it really, really did look like the Seahawks would rip the hearts out of the 49ers at the very end with a touchdown and not a lot of time left. But on 4th down, Wilson connected with Hollister short of the goal line, and Dre Greenlaw made sure that he stayed short of the goal line. So what's a find? That was yesterday, cleaning out the desk. I decided to keep it. There was a few Marshawn Lynch quotes in there, too. Remember that Marshawn came out of retirement for that football game. Here's the Marshawn Lynch quotes. This is worth checking out. I haven't done anything fresh off the couch. Your boy just wanted to get some legs. That's what Marshawn said. He did comment a little bit more. It wasn't, I'm just here so I don't get fined from Marshawn Lynch. He actually had 3 quotes according to the transcript. And he had a touchdown in the game. But the motivational ploy of getting Marshawn Lynch back into the fold after some time in retirement did not work for Seattle. San Francisco did win the game. All right, so back in September, I predicted that the Seahawks would beat the 49ers. I obviously was wrong. The 49ers won 17-13, thanks in large part to the touchdown that you see up on the screen. That is Jake Tonjes making the catch against Reek Woolen. He just went up and got the football, even though the corner was in front of him at the time of the throw. Tonjes fought back for the ball. Brock Purdy allowed him to go up and high pointed. Brock gave his tight end a chance, a lot like Joe Montana gave Dwight Clark a chance in the January 1982 NFC Championship game against the Dallas Cowboys. And remember, it was 3rd down at the time, so I thought that was a really necessary risk for Brock Purdy to take. The 49ers were down in the game at the time, but they would have gotten the ball back, probably in very good field position with a defensive stop had that been intercepted or had they not scored on that drive. Jake Moody had already missed 2 kicks, including 1 block, and the 49ers had the ball deep inside Seattle territory. So actually, the worst case scenario there, a turnover or even a missed field goal. Who knows if the 49ers would have even sent Moody out there at the time. But the worst case scenario there would have still had the 49ers down by 3 with some timeouts and Seattle with the football deep in their own territory. And the 49ers defense that first week was playing at a top 5 level with both Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. They really snuffed out the Seahawks offense for the vast majority of that game. So anyway, it was, we talk about Brock Purdy's risk-reward calculator. 3rd down, you're going to need 2 scores to win that game anyway, either a touchdown or 2 scores. If it's going to be only a field goal, you're going to need a second score. So he said, well, I want to go for the touchdown right here. And scramble drill, moving to his right, fired the football in a spot where Jake Tonjes could go up and get it, and Jake Tonjes wanted that ball more than the Seahawks defenders around him. That very quickly, a legendary moment in 49ers history. It was nearly 4 months ago. You don't see. I'm trying to remember the last time that this happened. Probably not in the time that I've been covering the 49ers. A game against a team in week 1, followed by the divisional rematch against that team in the very final week of the year. It definitely hasn't happened since the 49ers and the NFL moved to the 17-game schedule. So 18 weeks apart, 49ers and Seahawks. The evolution of both of these teams has been fascinating. And, one thing that I talked about yesterday is, yes, the 49ers won this game 17-13. And yes, there have been a lot of changes for the 49ers defensively because of the injuries. No Nick Bosa, no Fred Warner, no Michael Williams for San Francisco at this point of the season. But there have also been positive changes for the 49ers. They moved on from Jake Moody after that week 1 game. So they have Eddie Pinheiro at kicker now, and they missed 2 field goals against Seattle in week 1. The 49ers, because of that change, have had the best special teams unit in the entire NFL, better than even Seattle's. They're 1-2 with Seattle since that week 1 game. Obviously, offensively, the 49ers may not have Trent Williams in this game. They did for the game against the Seahawks in week 1, but Trent did get hurt in that game against Seattle. I don't think that people quite remember this. He was dealing with some ankle soreness, and he gave up 6 pressures in week 1 against the Seahawks. It got to the point where Trent, the next week against the New Orleans Saints, was a game time decision. He had to go out there and test his ankle before the game against Seattle, against New Orleans at the Louisiana Superdome. And then he decided to play. And it took Trent a few weeks to really, I think, find his sea legs this year. And I think one of the main reasons was that he got rolled up on, or whatever happened against Seattle. He played through it, but he obviously wasn't 100%, and it probably wasn't 100% for a few weeks into the 2025 season. So the overarching point here is that the 49ers did not have a 100% Trent Williams in week 1 when they did beat the Seahawks. They also didn't have George Kittle for the majority of the game. Kittle exited after the first drive with a hamstring injury, and they will have George Kittle out there on Saturday night here at Levi's Stadium. If Trent Williams doesn't go, it's going to be Austin Pleasance, who played well in place of him last week. Ian Rappaport this morning said, Trent Williams hasn't practiced at all this week, dealing with a hamstring injury. Hard to imagine he is out there with no practice on a short week. Crazier things have happened, but to me, I'm not expecting the big man to be out there. Those of you who have been watching me this week know that I'm in a similar camp, but I'm not ruling it out. I don't think the 49ers are ruling it out. Trent had never dealt with a soft tissue injury, and he's 37 years old. He's played football for a long time, and he's played football with a lot of motion for a long time. This is not just a big guy that stands around. So this has been the first soft tissue injury, and because of that, I think it's probably hard to predict how long this is going to sideline him for. He is a special athlete, and the special ones have different recovery timetables than would just be prescribed in some sort of hamstring recovery book. That's why I'm not going to rule Trent Williams out until I'm absolutely sure that he is not playing in this football game. But yes, the Ian Rappaport's point is taken. It really mirrors what we've been saying here all week, that this is a short week. This is a hamstring injury. These are typically multi-week injuries. The fact that the 49ers are even talking about Williams having a chance to play this week, the fact that they haven't ruled him out yet, is good news for the 49ers, because it means that he should be back for the postseason at the very least. Now, that really underscores what's at stake in this game. You win, you get an automatic playoff win in the wild card round for free. that wild card round, you don't have to play. There's going to be no injury toll next week. So if you win this game as the 49ers, you advance all the way to the divisional round. You don't play until January 17th, I think would be the date. Maybe, well, let's see what Saturday is and what Sunday is that weekend. It's, yeah, January 17th is Saturday. So the earliest you'd play is January 17th of the divisional round weekend. That would mean 15 more days, 2 more weeks beyond this point for Trent Williams and his hamstring to heal. So he'd basically have a full 3 weeks at that point. You would ensure that whatever happens on January 17th would be at Levi Stadium at home. And you would also ensure by extension that if you won on January 17th, what happened on January 25th, the NFC Championship game, would also be at Levi Stadium, of course, ahead of the Super Bowl, which would be coming on February 8th to Levi Stadium. So the 49ers are in this stretch right now where every single game can be at home for the rest of the season, provided that they win on Saturday against the Seattle Seahawks. Anyway, the 5 fast predictions are up on the San Francisco Standard. As I said, I predicted Seattle to win back in week 1. Yes, I was wrong about that. A lot of you gave me a hard time about that, but I was just being objective. And I think people probably understand at this point why I did pick the Seahawks to win. I was not overrating the Seahawks. I think that I was spot on with how good of a team Seattle is, how good of a defense Seattle is. This is a monstrous defense. Mike Macdonald is a really good coach. He's obviously a very good defensive play caller. And what we saw on the field in week 1 was very reflective of who the Seahawks were over the final 6 or 7 games of the preceding season. They closed very strong in 2024, and they had designs of being the league's number 1 defense entering 2025, and I don't think they've disappointed. I think maybe the Texans can say that they've had a slightly better defense. The Rams have been really good too. They're top 5. The Browns were up there for a while, but I just don't think the Browns have gotten offensive support over the course of this season to stay up in that upper echelon, because it ends up being a team sport. So the Seattle Seahawks have lived up to the preseason hype defensively. That being said, the 49ers found a way to beat them back in week 1, despite the fact that the special teams unit for the 49ers did not do them any favors. There were very, very long drives that the 49ers went on in week 1 that I think really underscore what the formula for San Francisco is going to have to be in this rematch week 18. I'm going back to the week. As soon as we get the week 1 drive chart up on the screen, you'll be able to see exactly what I was talking about. All right, so here we go. 17-13, 49ers over the Seahawks. We can take a look at some of the statistics and then, just really translate this into the formula the 49ers are going to need to apply to try to recreate what they did in week 1, even with a much worse defense. All right, so look here. 49ers had 4 drives of over 10 plays against Seattle. They are talking so much this week about how they're going to have to earn everything against the Seahawks. Nothing is going to come for free. This is a really, really good Seahawks defense that plays a lot of 2-shell, which means it's hard to pass explosively against them. They've only given up 1 passing touchdown of over 10 air yards over the past several weeks. They also haven't given up a 100-yard rusher in 25 games, including this one where the 49ers weren't really able to run the ball when they won 17-13. Teams that play as much 2-shell as Seattle generally are a little bit more vulnerable against the run, but the Seahawks have not been run on. So how did the 49ers beat them in week 1? Well, 14-play drive to open the game. You can see I highlighted the 14 there. 95 yards and a touchdown. That's when they had George Kittle. So this 49ers offense, when it was at full health, minus Brandon Ayuk was marching 95 yards down the field, or technically 85, but 95 net yards for the 49ers because of a penalty, culminated with a George Kittle touchdown. Later in the half, they went 12 plays, 58 yards. There was a missed Jake Moody field goal, a short field goal at the end of that drive. In the third quarter, the 49ers went 14 plays, 57 yards, but there was a blocked field goal at the end of that drive, so no points. And then in the fourth quarter, they finally did convert a field goal. They went 11 plays, 52 yards. That does not count. Like the four drives that I just listed, the 10-plus play drives, do not count the game-winning touchdown drive where they went 68 yards on 7 plays. They had to be more explosive given the limited time there, and Brock Purdy went over the top to Ricky Pearsall. Anyway, the point is that they had 4 drives of 10 or more plays, which is just really good and really hard to do, but I think necessary to do against the defense of this caliber, because this is elite against elite. The 49ers offense, very top of the league. The Seahawks defense at or near the very top of the league. We can open up the team tier chart to just hammer this home, because the Seahawks have been, and I'm gonna narrow the sample to week 11 until now, because that's when Brock Purdy has returned. So I think that really does a better job hammering home what we're dealing with as far as a matchup goes this week. So here we go, weeks 11 to 18. I'm going to get this up on the screen as soon as it processes. Now, this is Ben Baldwin's site, Seattle guy, Ben Baldwin, and he's been really a pioneer of a lot of these analytics. So shout out to him. Big week for Ben. I'm sure he's going to be watching this Seahawks 49ers game with bated breath. All right, here we go. Since week 11, this is what the efficiency around the league looks like. Offense is on the bottom, x-axis. Defense is on the y-axis. 49ers and the Patriots, the two best offenses in the league since then. I think Drake May is the favorite for the MVP for a reason. He's been better than Matthew Stafford this year, but that's a discussion for another time. Since week 11, actually, the best defense in the league has been Jacksonville's. Respect to them. That's a good football team that came into Levi's Stadium and beat the 49ers in week 4. Could be a Super Bowl preview. Who knows? But Seattle's been the second best defense in the league. You could see them here. Look who also is playing good defense. The Saints. That's interesting. I didn't even notice the Saints had been that good defensively over the course of the past month and a half, 2 months. But the Seahawks are here at the top. If you expand this over the course of the entire season, Seattle is number 2 behind Houston. Houston's fallen off a little bit as of late. But the point is the Seahawks have been very, very good defensively throughout. So you're getting a team high up on the y-axis, a team far out to the right on the x-axis, and they play each other this weekend. That is elite on elite. So I think that whenever you get a matchup like this, when you truly do have top-level football in both of those phases of the game, and those two phases are going to be clashing on the field, you always, look to see how is the quarterback going to, I hate to say manage the game because it has such a pejorative term, but managing the game is everything. And in any game, really, the quarterback's job is to manage the game, is to keep everyone settled, is to have that risk reward calculator firing at all times in his head. And maybe he does turn the ball over once, maybe he does turn the ball over twice, but if he's taking the chances that he needs to take in order to move the ball and score points against this Seattle defense within the context of what his own defense is going to do against Sam Darnold, then that's what you have to live with if you're the 49ers and if you're evaluating Brock Purdy in this football game. Kyle Shanahan a few weeks ago said, I want my quarterbacks to throw into tight windows, because the second a quarterback doesn't throw into tight windows, The second that I know that we're not going to score a lot of points. The 49ers are not a great separation team. They've improved a little bit since last year where they ranked dead last when they didn't have Brandon Ayuk and they didn't have Christian McCaffrey. That was a nightmare season for injuries. This year they've had McCaffrey back. That's helped a lot. It's created some spacing out on the field, but they haven't had Ayuk. They've had their receiving issues. Ricky Pearsall has been out for a good portion of this season. So they rank like number 24 and number 25 in average separation. It is a tight window offense. Like that's the only way that this team has been able to achieve this type of offensive efficiency. The very far right, especially since Brock Purdy has returned, has been by working the tight windows and taking some risks downfield. You have to have that risk reward calibration, because if you're only checking the ball down, if you're staying short of the sticks, you're going to be punting a whole lot. You're not going to be scoring the points that you need to score. And the scoring demand is great on this 49ers team because the defense has not been great for this 49ers team. We'll delve into defensive opportunism and what Robert Saleh's unit has to do against Sam Darnold. We could talk about that for 10 or 15 minutes here in a little bit, but I don't want to turn the page from the offense because I think it's so important to emphasize that the offense is going to have to operate within the context of what that defense might allow. And I keep on going back to the high 20s being the magic number in this game, weather permitting. Now, if there's a complete downpour, and I don't know exactly what the weather's going to be. There's rain in the forecast, but it could also let up at game time. It's been raining a lot here in the Bay Area. Just toss the conditions aside for a minute and just look at this matchup objectively, look at it on the XY, and then factor in special teams and say, okay, maybe special teams plays this out to a draw this time because these are the two best special teams units in football. But I think that the 49ers need to be in the upper 20s in this game to win. I think that, and I'll get into my reasoning in a little bit, but I think that the Seahawks offense is good for the mid-20s in this game against the 49ers defense. Even though the Seahawks have struggled, even though offensively since week 11, since Purdy has returned, look where the Seahawks are offensively. They're below average offensively. I mean, you don't really want to be in Eagles and Texans territory offensively. Those aren't exactly world-beating offenses. The Seahawks, though, their profile resembles that they've slowed down significantly. I think, the run game was better for Seattle last week. And if they don't run, then I think that there are big issues for Seattle. But if Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker are productive on the ground, then yeah, Seattle's going to be able to move the ball. Sam Darnold can go off of play action, and the 49ers stopped the run in week 1, which was huge. And whenever teams have stopped the run against Seattle this year, it's had to be a defense first formula for the Seahawks. But I think just given where the 49ers defense is at, which is obviously not in a great place, but still in an opportunistic one. The Bears are only 1 for 3 in the red zone against the 49ers. And just given where the 49ers defense is at, though, holding Seattle under 20 this time, I think is going to be very, very difficult. Now, the same keys are going to apply for that 49ers defense. You're going to give up yardage in all likelihood, but you've got to make sure that Seattle scores 3 and not 7 the majority of the time. You have to win the majority of the red zone battles. I think if you do, you can hold the Seahawks to 24. That's like my spitball math right there. You can hold the Seahawks to 24. Now, if that's what happens, then the expectation and the need, the demand from the 49ers offense is for 27. Can you get into the upper 20s? I think that is the path to victory for the 49ers. Now, you can take a shortcut to this path if Sky Moore rips off a kick or punt return for a touchdown or something that's very long. You can also see the Seahawks take a shortcut to their path to victory, which I think is getting into the high 20s themselves with a big special teams play on their end with Rashid Shaheed, who had the big special teams play against the Rams. Like, just because the 49ers have a good special teams unit this year, just because it's ranked high, doesn't mean that they're immune to big Seahawks special teams plays. So we can't completely eliminate that third phase of the game, but assuming that is a draw, because those two units are good, I think that the 49ers offense, the task for them is to go toe-to-toe with an elite Seattle defense and find a way into the upper 20s in this game. Now, we could talk about the other side of the ball. I've got some other graphics that we can go through. Here, first an overarching one. This is point differential since week 11, since we're using that week 11 split for everything. Speaking of Jacksonville, the two best teams in the league in terms of point differential ever since Brock Purdy returned have been the Jags and the 49ers. Look who the third best team is, the Seattle Seahawks. Since that week 11 time, so you're wondering, what wins out more, the 49ers on the very right of the XY graph with the great offense, or the Seahawks near the top of it with the great defense? Well, it's been really close. Those are the two very different teams, two stylistically different teams. One is offense driven, one is defense driven. They end up being 2 and 3 in point differential since week 11, since Brock Purdy returned. I just think that this is such a compelling matchup, because when you do get two stylistically contrasting teams, but they're near the same quality of team as all the numbers seem to indicate, it sets it up for you. Just grab your popcorn. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be the long drives that the 49ers put together against Seattle in week 1 were such a great preview to help us get ready for this game, because Seattle will not give up a lot easily, explosive-wise, downfield, and the 49ers are going to have to be refined. They're going to have to execute. They're going to have to treat the short game very preciously in this game. And, there'll be calculated downfield strikes, I'm sure, like the one to Ricky Pearsall in the fourth quarter that helped tilt the game in the 49ers' favor. But this is going to be about risk-reward calculation. This is going to be about good, clean football. This is going to be about penalty-free football on a down-in, down-out basis. And games like this, where you have to grind it out and earn everything, especially with as much as there is on the line, are extremely, extremely gratifying to watch for anybody who's a big football fan. So I cannot wait for that. Speaking of explosive play rates, I think this is a good opportunity to flip this discussion around to the 49ers defense. This is one of the more fascinating charts. Look, you don't even see the 49ers logo yet. Why? Because it's so low and to the left here that it's being covered by the text title. So I'll remove the text title, and there you can see the 49ers logo. So this is blitz rate on the x-axis from SF Data Niners, by the way. Great account. Go follow SF Data Niners. But blitz rate is on the x-axis, and sack rate is on the y-axis. So the 49ers don't blitz a lot. They blitz the least in the league, and they also don't get a lot of sacks. They have the least amount of sacks in the league. And a lot of people will probably say, well, since they don't get a lot of sacks, why aren't they blitzing more? Well, they can actually control moving their logo right here. They can actually control moving it to the right if Robert Saleh called more blitzes, and maybe that would up the sack rate. And this is a glimpse into a divergent strategy that Robert Saleh is using, since he doesn't have the firepower that he had in the past with the 49ers. There is a recognition from Saleh that the 49ers are not going to flood you out of the building, that the 49ers are not going to be able to effectively get to the quarterback, especially if they do blitz and they leave themselves vulnerable in coverage on the back end. There's also recognition from Robert Saleh that he's got an elite offense on the other side of the ball to carry this team. So the result is that Robert Saleh is okay with backing off and giving up yards, because he knows that he's got maybe 5 bullets a game. A bullet in this case is a play that catches the offense off guard, that can either generate a takeaway or can deliver a red zone stop or can deliver a stop at a really high leverage moment. And what Robert Saleh realizes is that a lot of the bullets are going to be blitzes. or disguised blitzes or disguised coverages. But he can't use them willy-nilly throughout the course of the game because the 49ers will run out of bullets and then they're going to get burned as a defense. They just don't have the personnel pass rushing wise to win on a down in, down out basis, mano a mano. There has to be some trickery here from the 49ers. There has to be some disguise. And because of that, Robert Saleh has just decided let's cut off the blitzing. By and large, let's cut off the blitzing. And this is ever since Brock Purdy returned, by the way. This is weeks 11 to 17. So this makes it even more fascinating because this has all happened with the recognition that the 49ers have an elite offense on the other side. Saleh is okay with allowing yards to come in front of the 49ers as long as he stops the explosive passes. And the 49ers have been better than league average in terms of combating explosives. He wants everything to stay in front of the 49ers defense. And then at the biggest moments, like you saw against the Chicago Bears in the red zone, the 49ers pounced defensively. It wasn't just the red zone against the Bears. There were several high leverage moments against Chicago where the 49ers succeeded on defense. The first two drives of the game, they stopped the Bears. They forced 2 punts. So that allowed the 49ers to dig themselves out of the pick six hole at the very start, and they ended up taking a 14-7 lead. B, the drive at the end of the first half against the Bears. Do you guys remember that? The 49ers at that point were up by 7, but Chicago was going to get the ball first in the second half. So when the Bears had the ball at the end of the first half, it was very important for the 49ers not to let them score because otherwise they'd be able to lap the 49ers, double them up with a score at the end of the second quarter and a score at the start of the third. So the 49ers got to stop there. Saleh used one of his blitzes there, like one of his few blitzes he used on that drive at the end of the first half. It was a high leverage moment, and the 49ers stopped Chicago. And then, very obviously, the final drive of the game where, people will be talking about that final play for a while. Who knows if we'll get a straight answer on that final play before the end of the season. Shanahan and Saleh have said that it was by design that the 49ers dropped 9 into coverage. I've heard from others that it was an accident that the 49ers dropped 9 into coverage. Whichever way that is adjudicated, it worked for the 49ers because Caleb Williams didn't have the throwing lane, and the 49ers were able to get it done when push came to shove. The larger overarching truth remains in place, and that is the 49ers have saved their aggressiveness and the schematic bullets that they need to win these games for the very most important moments, which is why they are the outlier in the bottom left here. And this is since week 11. This is since Brock Purdy returned. So the way that they're playing defense has actually changed because they believe so much in this offense with Brock Purdy at quarterback. Probably the best statistical example of this in play was Brock Purdy's very first game back against the Arizona Cardinals. Jacoby Brissett set an NFL record for completions in that game. He had 50-something completions in that game. But it wasn't an efficient performance. He might have even had 400 yards, but everything was out in front of the 49ers. They rarely let something get behind them defensively, and they controlled that game. I think they're up 35-10 entering the fourth quarter of that game. So the defense actually, on the aggregate, did exactly what the 49ers needed it to do, especially considering the fact that Brock Purdy's offense was in absolute supercharger mode for that game. And they've been in supercharger mode for essentially the whole stretch from weeks 11 to 17, with the exception of the first half against Carolina with those 3 interceptions. But then he got right back on the horse in the second half and was fine. And then went to Cleveland, did the Dougie. 49ers scored, damn near 30 points on the road in the wind against Cleveland's defense. It's just been lights out for the 49ers since then. They went into their bye week. They came out of the bye week, lit up Tennessee. Then they entered the Monday Night Football game against the Indianapolis Colts, against Phillip Rivers, and put up, 47 points, 48, no, maybe even 48. Yeah, I think it was 48 points against Indianapolis. And then obviously came back home and faced the Bears and did what we saw him do last week, another 40-plus point game, 5-touchdown game for Brock Purdy. So when you have that on your team, you have the luxury to do this as a defense when you feel overmatched on that side of the ball. And, how do we apply this specifically to what Seattle is going to bring to the table offensively? I don't think they're as good offensively as the Chicago Bears. I think the Bears with Ben Johnson this year have turned a corner offensively. They're obviously very dangerous. Running the football, Caleb Williams has the ability to throw on the move, and he might not be great in structure, at least yet in his NFL career, but they're able to kind of create this almost, I know it's an oxymoron, but a scripted out of structure experience for Caleb Williams that makes that offense very, very dangerous. The 49ers will not be tested in that type of way against Seattle. What the key against Seattle, it's going to be more of a standard run game with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. And then there's Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is an excellent receiver, but he's been really, really efficient. Like, he's been insanely efficient this year working against base defense. So this is why you have to slow the run in this game if you're the 49ers. JSN is averaging over 5 yards per route run, which is an absurd number against base defense. So if you can't stop the run, you're going to have to put a third linebacker out there on the field, and that's going to be base. It's going to be much harder to bracket, double, do whatever you need to against JSN. And that's where he's been over 5 yards per route run. The Seahawks can throw not only out of play action, but just out of any situation where the opponent thinks that a run is very possible or likely. And if you slow the run, well, then you limit those types of situations, right? So the 49ers, I think it's going to be hard to keep Seattle under 30 in this game if they don't slow the run. The good news for the 49ers is that when they've been tasked with having to slow a run game this year, like when that's been the most important priority on the table, they generally have gotten the job done. They're number 14 against the run in EPA per play this year. Big improvement from number 29. For much of this season, the 49ers were in the top 10 as far as run defense EPA went. So Robert Saleh has taken care of that aspect of things to a decent, solid level. Are they foolproof against the run? Absolutely not. Have there been major slip-ups this year? Yes. What's going to happen on Saturday? I don't know, but I'm talking about the matchup here, and I think that this is the absolute focal point, because Seattle throwing off of play action to JSN, or Seattle just throwing with a rushing threat to JSN, it's going to be really, really tough for the 49ers to deal with. They're not going to be trailing him around with Deommodore Lenoir. That's a lot of bluster. It's a lot of talk. Lenoir's done a good job in his coverage assignments against JSN, but there have been so many moving pieces on this 49ers defense. The Robert Saleh explained it this week. There's no way that you could justify the downstream negative impact of other guys in foreign spots if you're just changing around your defense. I mean, there may be some man that the 49ers play. They're going to mix it up, but this is not going to be a pure have Deommodore Lenoir take on JSN for the whole game, because that one-on-one JSN is beating almost everybody. You have to find a way to get help. You have to find a way to pressure Sam Darnold in a fashion that gets the football out in a different direction. Defense is extremely complicated, and I think it's all rooted in, does an offense play the game downhill, or do they play it uphill based on whether or not they're running the football successfully? All right, I think I have some more data. We'll see if Mike sent me anything. Oh, I got this. I mean, we talked about Fred Warner at the top. I was walking in yesterday, going to the practice field, and I saw Trent Williams and Fred Warner walking away from the practice field, and they were walking back into the building. The locker rooms are inside Levi Stadium, and I saw both of those guys, and I'm like, damn, that's a lot of talent right there the 49ers may not have in this game. Trent ended up not practicing for San Francisco. But it's also talent that the 49ers, even if Trent doesn't play in this game, it's also talent that the 49ers would be slated to get back, it seems, with Warner at least, Williams for sure, would be slated to get back in January, at some point in January, maybe even January 17th, which if the 49ers win, that'd be their next game. Well, this is the social media post from Fred Warner saying that he misses it so much. Well, Fred is walking around without a limp. It's been that way for a while. Fred has been doing some swimming. I think that's really helped him keep the cardio up and really work back into shape. Fred is fired up. I think that the playoffs are absolutely on the table for Fred Warner, and they weren't on the table a couple months ago. So between Warner and Williams, the 49ers could return two absolute A-list players. Trent, maybe even this weekend. We will see. I'm going to set the table with some of the roster moves for the 49ers, which will be coming out later today. But these two guys walking together from the field into that locker room yesterday just helped remind me how much is at stake this weekend, because the 49ers have a lot of star players, and I know that some of them are out right now, but they could potentially have close to a full stable. Basically everyone besides Nick Bosa. And I know Brandon Ayuk, that's a sad situation. Nobody really knows what's going on there. But of the players who have been around the building for all of this season, everybody but Nick Bosa could be back as far as the stars go when these playoffs roll around. And I can't underscore how massive that would be for the 49ers. Mike ran some numbers. This is good stuff. And he looked up teams with bad defenses that won the Super Bowl. The 49ers are number 24 on defense right now, and number 1 on offense since Brock Purdy returned. But so we know that they have an elite offense, and we know that the defense is bad. The 2011 New York Giants were 21st in defensive DVOA, and they won the Super Bowl. That was a magic run for the Giants, that they were able to run into the Alex Smith 49ers in the playoffs, and that defense looked a lot better than 21st in DVOA. But obviously Eli Manning got the job done. And this is probably a better comparison right here. The 2009 Saints were 12th in DVOA. Mike, what was the 2009 Saints offensive DVOA? That was obviously Drew Brees, but 12th in defensive DVOA, not great. Solid. It was a little bit above average. The 2006 Colts won the Super Bowl as 26th in defensive DVOA. So right now the 49ers are 24th in defensive EPA. I'm sure the DVOA is about the same. I could look it up later, but they're closer to the 06 Colts than they are to the 2009 Saints. Although I do think that Bob Sanders returned for the 06 Colts and made that defense better over the course of the postseason. Maybe that's the comp, though. Maybe Fred Warner comes back and makes the 49ers defense better over the course of this 2025 postseason to give them a little bit of an inside track, because I believe that Peyton Manning wasn't very good in the 06 playoffs. Am I right about that, Mike? I think that we have some numbers on Manning in the 06 playoffs. I think that was much more of a defense-driven run than the regular season numbers would suggest that it would be. Either way, it has been done before. And the formula, I don't think you could do it in this modern day and age with an elite defense and a bad offense. I just don't think it's possible to win a Super Bowl the way that the rules are set up, the way that the league has flowed. But I think you can do it with an elite offense and a bad defense. I don't think you can do it the other way around, and special teams has to be good. Peyton Manning in the 06 playoffs had 3 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. You guys know that I hate touchdown-interception ratio, but we can also recognize that he didn't have a world-beating playoffs through that statistics. And they had, in the regular season, those Colts, Manning went 3 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on a playoff run that ended up in a Super Bowl victory. He had that poor stretch, and the Colts entered the playoffs with a number 26 defense in the league, which ranks worse than the 49ers right now. I mean, that '06 Colts run needs to be studied. It will be studied. I will study it because that's, you know, in a way, that's a template for the 49ers, especially with the Bob Sanders return for the Indianapolis Colts. And we're talking about Fred Warner returning for the 49ers right now. But he's not going to be back for San Francisco on Saturday night. Not happening. Not yet. It's going to be up to Bethune. It's going to be up to D. Winters to fit the run game. Maybe some Eric Kendricks for the 49ers. Now, why don't we talk about those potential roster moves that are going to be happening a little bit later today? We're going to have a nice, fun video again. We're going to get some food reintegrated into some of these videos. I know that we haven't had as much of it lately because we've been just straight football talk recently. But this afternoon, when we get the 49ers roster moves, we can integrate a lot since we finally have a day off here in San Francisco on this second day of 2026. Here is the 49ers depth chart for right now. They're going to have 2 practice squad elevations that they can use. And the 49ers right here will probably use 1 on Kendricks, which would be his final elevation. I think you want Eric Kendricks in uniform, at least a backup at linebacker. I don't know, they still had Gifford at the Sam, so maybe Gifford stays at the Sam linebacker for San Francisco. He has been solid against the run. I thought that maybe Eric Kendricks would be an option at that position, but it does seem like he's the backup Mike at this point. So I'm actually going to flip Eric Kendricks and Jalen Graham right now. And Kendricks can also play the will linebacker. I expect him to be elevated from the practice squad today. And then we wonder what the second elevation is going to be for the 49ers and if there are any other moves for San Francisco. The Trent Williams situation means that Austin Pleasance will likely be the 49ers starting left tackle. And somebody, we wonder what happens if either Pleasance or Colton McKivitz gets hurt. Who plays tackle? I think Spencer Burford swings out to one of the tackle positions, but then you need another guard. Does Matt Hennessy move in as guard? Well, he's your backup center. Does Connor Colby move in? I think that Nick Zakelj may get the 49ers second elevation today, just so they're more insulated at the guard position in case one of their tackles goes down while Trent Williams is not playing, because Spencer Burford would have to kick out the tackle. So my predictions would be Eric Kendricks and Nick Zakelj as the 49ers elevations. Elevations seem to be tough to predict, though, sometimes. So we'll see what happens when the actual news comes out a little bit later today. All right, guys. Any questions? We're almost at 49 minutes covering the 49ers. Stephen David says that Pleasance is going to have a great game. He had a good game last week. We have a new member. Everybody can join the YouTube channel memberships. Also, while you're here, we're trying to get this up to 100,000 real subscribers. We're at 97,333. Happy New Year to everyone. And 2026, the year of 100K. We said this season would be the season of 100K, and it looks like we might be right. But, I mean, there's a little bit of a deadline. The 49ers could theoretically lose 2 games in a row and their season could be over. That wouldn't be good, but they could, right? They could lose to the Seahawks, and then they could lose to the Philadelphia Eagles would probably be the opponent next week. And we might not be at 100K, and that wouldn't be good. We're trying to get there by the end of this season. So you can help that cause by hitting the subscribe button right now. Right, we should be a few more at this. But yeah, see, I just got 3 in the last 2 seconds. So that's a lot of speed right there. We need a little bit more to get to 100,000 real subscribers before this season ends. Now, if the 49ers push this all the way through to the Super Bowl, I think it's money in the bank. I think it's a slam dunk. But either way, we want to get there as soon as possible. Going back into the comment section, we'll answer a few more questions. Oh, look, we're getting new members all across the board. Nicole says you can't sleep on Darnold or this team. They did beat the Rams in amazing comeback fashion. Well, yeah, the Seahawks are favored in this game, guys. They're favored by 1.5. It's a narrow margin. I've gone through all the numbers. I think it's almost dead even between these two teams. It's as close to a toss-up as you can find. The Seahawks beat the Rams thanks in large part to special teams, but the Rams have a better offense-defense combo than the 49ers. The Rams have a better defense than San Francisco. So Seattle needed that special teams to win that game. I don't think they're going to have the special teams edge against the 49ers that they did against LA. And but they will have theoretically an edge with their offense against the 49ers defense. So then it comes down to opportunism for San Francisco. They just got to keep on battling. They've got to show that grittiness that they've shown really all season. And then then we could focus the spotlight on the marquee matchup, which is the elite 49ers offense against the elite Seattle defense. Get your popcorn out. It's going to be awesome. There's no other way to really chop this game up. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Those three battles, with one of those battles being elite on elite. I'm looking through some more questions. Let's get some good ones up there, guys. Yeah, get your beers ready. Seahawks are 31st in the league with turnovers. It hasn't mattered this year. Well, it has mattered. I mean, they lost the game to the Rams down at SoFi when Darnold threw 4 picks. I'm sure the Seahawks would have loved to have that win under their belts. But generally, yeah, they've been able to overcome the takeaways because their defense has been so good. And if they do continue to turn the ball over tomorrow, you're going to have to make them pay for it. I understand the sentiment. Keon White was back at practice yesterday in a limited capacity. We'll see if he plays and how much he plays. I think it's all hands on deck, though. Anybody who's available for that 49ers pass rush, they can definitely use against the Seahawks. Thanks to those of you who signed up to be new members. That's awesome. Got a couple of you during the show today. It's about catching lightning in a bottle as the defense. That's exactly right. I think that's the best way to put it. That's a good comment. Does Ricky Pearsall score his first touchdown this season in this game? Possibly. He's technically questionable, but it would absolutely shock me if Ricky Pearsall did not play on Sunday for San Francisco. How much of an impact will Huff have? I think that Bryce Huff is going to have to be the closer in this game. I think there's going to be a closing opportunity that the 49ers are going to need to execute. And he was the closer. He really contributed against the Bears. He won his one-on-one on that play at the goal line, the final play of the game, and that flushed Caleb Williams out of the pocket. Huff has closed games earlier this year. I still remember week 2 against the Saints. He may not have a massive statistical impact over the course of the whole game. He's not Myles Garrett. He's not Nick Bosa. But if he can win at the opportune moments, that's what this 49ers defense is all about. All right, guys, we will take a look at the roster moves in a little bit. Remember, Kittle, Trent Williams, Ricky Pearsall, all listed as questionable. I think that Trent Williams is going to come down to the wire. I'd be shocked if Pearsall and Kittle didn't play. Kittle's already said that he's playing, but I saw Ricky walking around the locker room this week. I actually didn't talk to Ricky this week, but He's been banged up, and he has to be on the injury report if he's not 100% healthy. That's just the way that the league rules work. He's been good for the 49ers, though, and I think that he showed his reliability last week, and we'll see Ricky on the field this time. All right, guys. We will talk to you very soon. 49ers Seahawks coming up. Talk to you this afternoon.